Welcome to the Intentional AI podcast, where we talk about using AI to actually get work done. I'm David Sparks, and I'm joined as always by my good buddy Chris Bailey. Hi, Chris.
Hey, good buddy, old pal. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great. My buddy in AI. That's what you are.
Yeah,
And other
buddies in
things.
AI. Yeah,
And
and
other
life.
in life.
Buddies
There
in
we go.
AI and in life.
Hey, before we get into the topic today, you have an announcement.
And I kind of forgot I did this because they recorded it months ago, but I have a new TED Talk out. And I kind of forgot what it's called. It's like the 12 things that motivate you or something like that. I forget the exact title we chose, but it's good. It's out. It came out less than 24 hours ago, but we just crossed 10,000 views. So if you want to be 10,001, the link will be in the show notes.
You should train your AI to check for you daily, and then on Sunday give you a report.
Yeah.
You could easily do that with Claude or Cowork or
Yeah.
Codex or Gemini. You know, it can go check a website, can collect data, it can feed it back to you. See if you can go the
I
whole week
could.
without checking it.
I could, but I'm more. My idealized version is getting on the, Ron Popeil, the Ronco guy, the set
No.
it and forget it method of
Yeah.
putting a video out there. Just put it out there, forget about it. And the last one did 20 million, and so I know it's freeing knowing that there's no way this will do 20 million. It's like, okay, I've already had the big talk. Now 10,000 people can watch this one. We'll see how
You
it
never
goes.
know, Chris.
You never know. You never know.
All right. This week on the podcast, we are taking on a bigger topic, app development. How did we get here, Chris?
Oh man. So have you developed apps in your past? I think you have, haven't you? Just for funsies, right?
Yeah, well, my experience is mixed. I have dealt with a lot of developers. I've got to know a lot of them over the years. But I'll tell you, and when I was a kid, I was really into programming computers. My first programming experience was I did what they called, what was it? Player missile graphics, assembly language on an Atari computer, like an Atari 400. I mean, this
Cool.
is dating myself.
That's
But
so
it was
cool though.
it was assembly language. It was really crazy. I learned how to program in BASIC as a kid. I used to ride my 10-speed to Radio Shack. I didn't own the computer, but I would program on the computer on the show floor. And it was kind of like a dead Radio Shack, so they'd let me do it, and I'd make games.
Wow.
And then they would give the games to the customers when they bought a computer. So there was a, little you scratch my back, I scratch your relationship going on. So yeah, I've been programming my whole life, but I'm not what you would call a programmer. I wanted to make an app for years called the No app, where you write down the things you say no to. I think that's like something worth tracking. And I built one myself, but I never could quite get it. And I got it over the hump using AI like a year or two ago. And that's in the App Store now, the No app. But it's out of date, and I need to check it out. I haven't really updated it. So, but I also, the thing is, I know all these app developers, and I know how hard they work. And to me, the prototypical app developer is the Omni Group. They're a very well-known developer on the Mac platform, Apple platforms. They started making computers for Next, or apps for the Next computer, when Steve Jobs owned Next. So these guys know more in their thumbnail about programming than I will learn in my entire life. And I use a bunch of their apps, and I look at the release notes, and every time there's release notes, there's a bunch of things that they had to fix. And I'm thinking, these guys know more than I will ever know, and look how hard it is for them. So,
Yeah.
so I've always had kind of a healthy respect for app development, but that's kind of changing now, right?
And it's kind of interesting, the bug fix side, because the app that I created, we'll get into the whole journey, because we really are living through a time where anybody can make their own super app. It takes a lot of tokens. It takes a decent amount of time, but it's very, very doable to get the exact app that you want. But even this app, I'm finding that I encounter bugs all the time, little hiccups, little things that don't sync, because I've built a Mac version and an iPhone version, which is so it's sometimes a world of hurt. And sometimes I think, why did I develop on two platforms? And if I'm encountering these bugs, why would I ever want to? And Dana, my assistant, uses it too, because we share a task bank. I'll
Yeah.
get into what the app is in a second. But if we're encountering bugs, imagine if 10,000 people use the app. Imagine 20 million people use the app, whatever it might
Or
be.
100.
Or 100, encountering all these little edge cases for what they might encounter. So it's no wonder, and we'll get into this later too, how the app store is just getting flooded with apps, just like on the same in the same way that the internet seems to be with AI slop. There seems to be a lot of app slop. I'll kind of go through the app that I've developed for myself because I think the journey is interesting and there's things to learn from it. But on some level, I feel somebody sharing their app with you and me sharing the app with somebody is kind of like me showing photos of my cat Eleanor or my kid or something. You know, nobody is as interested in my app as I am. But that's the beauty of it, and that's just kind of what I think is so great about this new era of software development that we're entering into. It may not be the best app for everybody, but it's the best app for me. It's the best app for you.
And I think that's a huge theme here, is that the bespoke scratch my own itch app is now possible for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone who's
It's
willing to put the
wonderful.
time in and spend the money.
Yeah. One other bit of feedback that wasn't about the pronunciation of the app called Claude in Canada, Claude in America. It was about app development because I was chatting about my own journey to program the dashboard that we have in our house, which has become much beloved by guests who come. They say, "What the heck is this thing?" I was kind of sharing the coding journey with that, and I'll read the bit of feedback. It's a bit long, I'll warn you, but it's good. It's from a developer at Shopify for 12 years, and so I will do a dramatic reading of that feedback now. In one of your recent episodes, you were singing the praises of being able to write truly personal software with AI, and in the same episode spoke wistfully about how nice it would feel to be a real software developer. In my opinion, AI has already made you a quote-unquote real software developer, and the few remaining areas of advantage where someone who has experience with the historical writing code part of that job might choose a meaningful, better design for the thing being built will continue to be encoded into the harness. We've been talking about the harness that's wrapped around these AI models over the next couple of years. The projects that even the most naive prompts, and I would consider mine to be somewhat naive as a non-computer programmer, even the projects that they generate now are miles ahead of what most professional software developers would have been able to produce. And he goes on later, I find this really exciting. I believe we are at the very beginning of software development because we are now throwing open the door for anyone with knowledge of a popular human language to produce individualized software to their needs. Maybe that point can be up for debate. Software development has been around for a while, since the days of coding in BASIC and for Atari, but it's interesting how things have become commoditized in that way, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's great and it's terrible all at once. In the Robot Builder Club of my course, like, there are so many people who started that course who are not developers, who are making their own apps, doing all sorts of problems, and a lot of them, like I said, are scratching their own itch. At one of the recent ones, somebody built their own time blocking app that looked to me better than any time blocking app I've ever seen. And it's because it's by a guy who does time blocking every day, and he knows what the friction points are. And he made it for himself. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
I also made an app a few weeks ago. I own a Vesta board, and I needed it to give me, different bits of information throughout the day. I've been bugging the Vesta board people to update their app, and I said, heck with it. I just made my own, and now that thing works better for me. It's like we all have little problems that we can solve. But Chris, I'd like to hear more about your journey, because you created a productivity app with a capital P.
Yes. So I've been writing about productivity for a long time. For 10 years, I've written 4 books on the topic. So I started to put together, I brought my notepad to a park, and I thought, okay, what are the features that I want in this application. And so I put together a dream feature list. I got the Apple developer account. I got the yearly subscription. It's $99 a year if you want to deploy these things.
Okay, let's talk about that just for a second.
yeah.
Why do you need the $99? People ask. If you're making stuff for Apple devices, there's a 7-day limit on the token, basically the trial upload on the free account. And if you don't have the $99 account, then you're going to have to be dealing with it every week, like the guy on Lost poking in the codes in the computer, right?
Yeah.
And that's silly to me. I actually recently wrote a newsletter about this. I think Apple should embrace this. They should make a personal developer tier of development. It should not cost $99 a year. Frankly, it shouldn't have access to the App Store. It's just a way to make and deploy apps between you and your little team. And it should be very inexpensive. But for now, you got to pay the $100.
Yeah, you got to pay up. That's such a good idea, by the way. And this is why you're so great, David, is you have ideas like that. So here's a list of the features that I wanted to have in the app. So I wanted to track all of the tasks that I have in my work. And I wanted them organized by the different contexts of the work that I do. So the speaking related tasks, the admin related tasks, the podcast, the content all these different areas. I wanted to be able to drill down into one of these areas because we have all these project spheres that we work inside of that we bounce between, and we're more productive when we spend more time within one. I wanted to be able to press play on one of those tasks and have that time tracked in the application. I wanted to share. This is where things get a bit more complicated. But Claude. No, I'm going to say Claude.
Chris, you gotta go with your word there, Chris.
I got to represent Canadians everywhere. Yeah. So I want to be able to share live a bank of tasks with Dana, my assistant, and I want us to be able to delegate tasks to one another. So when I need something for her, I can assign it to her and vice versa. I want to be able to delegate things to Claude so that when I chat with Claude next, it can read the tasks in the bank and say, okay, I saw you assign this thing to me. Let's work through it together. And now this is where it starts to become, what I think of as my own super app, because it has the scope of this app is not what most people want. But I want a meditation timer in there too. I'm doing this experiment to meditate for an hour a day. I want to be able to track my 3 daily tasks and weekly tasks. And I want Apple Intelligence to be able to tell me how that fits with my values, which is possible in the new betas. And so very few people want this combination of features, right? It's the picture of your kids, it's the picture of your cat, it's the home renovation that you do only for yourself that doesn't add any value to the home, which we're currently doing. So very familiar with that. But few people will want that combination of features, but I do. And so it's valuable for me.
So you made your bespoke app. I love that your task manager has a built-in meditation timer, because I'm pretty sure in all of the task managers in the world, that's not a thing.
No, definitely not. And that goes, that gets added. I should say, for people watching YouTube, I have a picture of it on the screen, but you don't have to jump to YouTube. I'll put screenshots in the show notes and link to it in there. But essentially, building it was a very interesting part of the process. So I learned a lot from the very first app project, the e-ink home dashboard. And watching Apple's WWDC keynote from this past year, not the for consumer keynote, but the for developer keynote called the State of the Union. One thing that they said really rang true for me, and I highly recommend that everybody who's listening who wants to make their own super app do this. But it's to identify the distinct phases in a development project. And they broke it down, and I think this is a very helpful way to break it down into design, implementation, and creation. We all have projects where, we think it'll take a week, but then we think, oh, wait, if only I do this one thing, a scope creep comes into play, and then it takes 2 months, right? And we don't want that with our app when these valuable tokens are, when we're burning through quite a few of them, honestly, doing these more advanced coding projects. So for the design project, I went to the park, I wrote down the features that I wanted, and I used Claude Design for that. I gave it my ideal feature wish list for it to develop a wireframe. And for context, I'm fortunate that I have these books that describe how I think about productivity. I fed those books as raw text to Claude to be able to piece together and see the contextualization of these features. So
you have 500,000 published words about these things. So that actually gave it a lot of context.
Yeah, and you can see that, if you go into, there's an intentions tab in the application, and you can see this in the screenshots. You'll see that it has something called the intention stack, which is in my latest book, Intentional. So I can see how my daily priorities fit with the weekly ones, which fit with my goals, which fit with my sub-values and priorities, and how that fits with my overall values. And so that context, right? We did a whole episode on context. What you feed it can lead to a better outcome when it's related to the features that you're interested in implementing. So that was a part of it. Started small with the scope. Some features were useless, but others I found I wanted to double down on. But the idea was getting to that starting point. And that leads to implementation.
To the title of this show, you were very intentional about this. I think a lot of ways people try to make apps is they just fire off a prompt at Fable or the best model they can get their hands on and say, make an app that does this, and that is the thing that all the AI companies publish. Like they want to tell you, I gave it 2 sentences and 2 days later I had a working copy of, Slack, or something like that. That's not the way to do this. If you want to be intentional about it, do what Chris did. Think about what are the features you want. Spend time on the design. Don't just fire off a short prompt because these are expensive to build. And also, if there's not a lot of structure and design added to begin with, you may get an app off that short prompt, but you're going to have a ton of work trying to get it workable. There's a bunch of stuff you need to fix because there is no really guiding intelligence when AI makes an app. It's not like a human. We just recently interviewed on Mac Power Users. I'll link to that as well. The guy who makes the Things app, which is a task manager for
wonderful
Apple platforms. Yeah, and he was talking about that. There's really no guiding intelligence. The AI does what it can based on the algorithm. And as the human in the loop, I think spending that time to think about design and features and architecture of what you're building and feeding that into a detailed prompt makes a huge difference, not only in the amount of the quality of what you make, but also the amount of time. You'll save yourself a ton of time by putting some effort up front.
Yeah, measure twice, 3 times, gather all the context that you could possibly ever want. One thing that I found really helpful, because I'm running the iOS beta on my iPhone that I'm testing this with, which has also been interesting, testing these features that are kind of on the edge, is I fed it transcripts of the keynote that was the developer's keynote. It went out on the internet and found them, or at least said it did. I didn't check its work on this. But I wanted it to have the latest and greatest stuff from Apple that it integrated in. But it just shows, there's something about AI where it kind of accentuates how people already work, right? If you work on autopilot mode, it just seems like you work faster and more frantically using AI, right? Because it can do more. You're just kind of managing it frantically. But that intentional beat where you take that step back and think, okay, what do I really want to create here? What would really add value through this application? And what context would back that up, knowing that the AI knows nothing going in? Very, very helpful. So that was the design phase. Then the implementation phase coming up next. So I asked Fable, I kind of have in the workflows that I have for developing applications, for example, Fable is kind of the maestro model, and we have a show planned on the different models and what they're great at, what they suck at coming up. But Fable is great at orchestration, right? It's great at coming up with the overall plan. The coding of it, I actually found Opus 5.0 more better. I found it better than how Fable coded, which I found interesting, and I'll have to dig more into that research. I don't know if you're able to contextualize it, but it just seemed like a better workhorse. And so Fable did deep research, thought deeply about the best strategy to code the application, and then generated a handoff file for the Opus model, which after burning through a lot of tokens trying to code this thing with Fable, eventually I did the handoff to Opus 5.0, that model, and it became quite easier. And I was a bit surprised by that.
I would add to that Fable's also a great auditor. So you have it help you, come up with the plan and then have it check the work of Opus. But you have Opus do the work.
Yeah. So important. And so the creation, then comes time for the grunt work, which I'm so happy didn't have to do much of. But it was, I would describe it as almost a magical process. We're seeing this application come to life. But maybe I'm weird in this way, because I remember back in high school, I think it was, coding my first application. It was terrible. It was just kind of like a hello world type application where it's like, look at me, I'm an application. But I remember feeling, oh, like this is just like the other applications on my computer as well. This is incredible. And seeing this vision come to life was magical. So I hope people listening, watching have a similar moment where if you can dream something, it's about more about the imagination of what you can code rather than the process of coding. Very token intensive, but it's also a large application. I put together a few tips for the creation of it, things that I learned the hard way, but were quite helpful. The first tip is have Claude actually use the software. So I did this through the iPhone mirroring application on the Mac and the local Mac version as well. Have it use it so it can actually wrap its head around, okay, what are things looking like? What's too small? What's too big? What doesn't work? What isn't mapped to what? What needs optimization, essentially? And also an unbelievable number of my prompts. I was reading an article about somebody who used Claude to solve some mathematical theorem, and they described that most of the prompts were along the lines of, keep going, you're doing great, please continue, go on, And so a lot of my own prompts were like that too. Audit your code was another big one for bugs, for errors. Looks good, continue. Do an adversarial audit of the code was another one. The audit
Whisperflow was giving me a list of the commands I give the most because it knows I do a lot of it, and it's like proceed and push it were like two of the most common things I say.
You're like a personal trainer. Yeah, you're like proceed and push. Okay,
you can do it.
You can do it, Claude. You can do it. So one thing that was really helpful, and bugs always came up.
Yeah.
Optimizations always came up, was whenever I asked it to audit the code. And so keep that in mind when you build something new. Do the audit of that code. Do a deep audit of the code, and solidify the starting application. Then you can iterate from there.
When you're doing those audits, one recommendation I would give is to say, give it a quantification. Say, find 10 bugs and order them in priority. And when you give it a number, then I think it does a better job. And then let's say you find 10 and they're all bangers. They're all bugs that really need to get fixed. You tell it to fix it. And then you say again, find another 10 and just keep doing that until the bugs that it's finding are not really bugs or it seems silly. But sometimes I find that when you give it that quantification, you actually get a better output.
I love that. You also wrote token monitoring app.
Yeah,
What's that?
the this is kind of related. I have recently fallen into the world of token monitoring apps. I'm gonna put one in. I have one called Claude Monitor. I got in the App Store, and but there's a bunch of them. There's some that are free, but this one's really nice. It goes in your menu bar, and my whole battle every week because I do most of my real serious AI work with Claude. I also use the other models, but Claude's the one where I've got it kind of helping me run the business. And the weekly token limit is always my nemesis, right? I'm fine on the 5 hour limit. I never really hit that. But because I've got a lot of stuff running in the background, some weeks I run out and that gets expensive. So now in my menu bar, it tells me exactly what my percentage is for the week. And if you're doing app development, I think this would be a useful tool to have. I can tell you right now I'm at 55% and I have a day and a half left. So I'm solid this week. I'm going to.
Oh, yours resets on Friday.
Mine
Interesting.
resets on Saturday night. And
Saturday.
the recording is on Friday. So tomorrow I'm going to unleash the dogs of Fable and I'm going to burn up so much because I've got the headroom. But I know that now because it's in my menu.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah, release the Kraken. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
something that I found with developing this thing is I always had one eye on the token usage because Fable, when it develops something, will just blow through the tokens that you have, the Fable tokens. Yeah, but it's very interesting. Like, and having that starting application, you begin. We all know features that other applications have, which again, speaks to the just bringing the awareness, the mindfulness of the whole coding process now. So I noticed, oh, there's not enough haptic feedback. My phone doesn't tap me back when I do things, or oh, when I complete one of my daily tasks, there should be a celebration that takes place. I want confetti falling from these daily tasks. Yeah, whimsy. Yeah, which I think whimsy makes the world go around. But in the meditation timer features that I wanted, redesigning pages, things will come up. But the magical thing about this whole process is, sure, you need the $100 at this point, unless you want to, build a new app every week and have to be beholden to that process. But it's a good kind of opportunity to think, okay, is this app worth $100 a year to me? My guess, if you're anything like me, is it will be, because you can pretty much create anything that you want for yourself and for other people, though it gets a bit more complicated then. You need quite a few tokens as well. I won't beat around the bush. We gave some ways to be more efficient with the tokens, especially in separating out the design and implementation from the actual coding part of the process. But that's another thing to keep in mind. But it's remarkable. I find it just remarkable, David, the democratization of software development. We're all developers now. And that's a pretty incredible thing because whatever app you want, whatever super app you want, you can get it now. Takes a bit of work, takes a bit of time, takes a bit of tokens, takes a bit of money, but you can get there with tools like Claude.
People will show up one week and say, I'm thinking about trying to make an app to do X, Y, and Z. And then they'll show up the next week and they've got a working prototype. And that's just crazy, but that's where we live. I want to talk for a minute, though, about the app business, because you mentioned at the beginning that the App Store is getting flooded. There's just we're just getting bombed with utility apps because people can make them. And like you, they're making it to scratch their itch. And there's an easy step between what you've done, Chris, to say, I've made the perfect app for me, to saying, well, now I'm going to sell it. Now I'm going to go in the app business, And I think that, if you're listening to this thinking this is my on-ramp, I'm going to get rich making apps, I want to caution you because it's just not that easy. And right now we are getting flooded with AI-generated apps. I checked this morning when I was working on the outline. As of 7 a.m. this morning, I had 7 emails from people wanting me to cover their new apps since last night. And I'm getting like 30 a day. It's just crazy. And there's no way I can cover it all. And I get so many apps in all the same productivity categories. And I think, if you get into that thing of thinking I'm going to make all this money on it, you really probably aren't. There are professional app developers out there covering most categories. Um, you know, the AI is letting them make their apps better, but they already have the advantage of an existing business and customer base. Apple can't keep up with the submissions. I can't keep up with the people wanting me to look at their apps. I don't cover an app unless I actually use it. I can't look at 30 apps a day. And the app business is difficult, not only to make an app, but right now there's tons of supply and not as much demand as you think. There's a lot of effort to support customers, and you don't know your code. Like Chris, if I asked you, what method are you using to make the fireworks go off when you check a task? Do you have any idea what's going on under the hood there?
I'm pretty sure it's quartz.
Okay,
That was the prompt that I used for. Yeah. But that's another interesting thing where maybe, the metal way of coding would be better. But I don't know. I don't know. So I asked it to do a quartz animation, but I'm not sure if that was the optimal one, the optimal strategy to do it.
Or could you find it in the code if you needed to fix it?
No, hell no. Hell no.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to discourage you because there are vibe coded apps being released that are really good and useful. I just bought is vibe coded. I don't know. It's not, just don't get your head full of ideas that suddenly you're going to be this massively successful app developer and you're going to make your next million on something you vibe coded up. Because, there are real developers out there that have real customer support pipelines that really understand what they're making. And I think that is going to dominate the market. All that said, making your own bespoke app to do what you need, like Chris did with his system, like I did with my Vesta board, that's where I think the real benefit is here. Like if you've got some problem that there is no app to fix for you and you're willing to put a weekend into it, you'll probably have it fixed.
I don't know if there's a name for the bias where it's I love this so much, so everyone must love this bias. It's so true when you're scratching your own itch. And oh man, a side note / side rant on the AI pitches. First of all, I'm getting a lot of pitches for vibe coded apps as well, but the number of AI emails that I'm getting right now. We talk about tasteful use of AI. By God, people, that is not a good one. Doing AI pitches for the various things that you're shilling out. It's so stupid, and it's so easy to spot too. Every author I know is getting these pitches for these book clubs and these messages that are fake from big time authors, like, oh, J.K. Rowling emailed me loving my book, where it's like from some random J.K. Rowling 08907 at gmail.com.
Yeah,
it's getting nuts. It's getting nuts out there, David.
Yeah, it's weird. The pitches have an alarming degree of specificity about me in them.
Yeah.
Because it used to be just the opposite. It was like, here's a pitch from somebody's assistant that it'd be lucky if they got the name of the blog site right if they mentioned it, right? But now it's very specific, but it's so specific that that it's not actually personal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is just like I've sadly gotten to where I just archive them. I just can't. If I spent time responding to all these, I wouldn't ship anything. I'd be in E.B. White's boat again. But it is something that's happening right now. But that's just a good reminder. Like, takeaway from this show should be, I'm going to make my own app to solve my problem. I don't think you should take away that you've got a new career in app development. And I know a lot of developers. I know how hard that business is. So just there'll be dragons there too. Be careful.
Yeah. The thing you realize after you make the app is once the app is made, your work is no longer making the app. It's, it's adding features and stuff, but it's squashing bugs. It's doing support. It's doing, all that stuff. The work really changes. It's kind of like opening a flower shop in a way, I feel, where I was chatting with a florist the other day. I was on a walk and I thought, a florist's day must be so magical, right? They own, it was like a flower shop and bookstore. What a magical place. Yeah. We have the sepia-toned idea of it. But I asked them what their day looks like, and they said, okay, well, I get up at 5 to take the orders in because the flowers all die.
Yeah.
So they have to
Yeah.
be responsive to it. And apps are the same way. I think of a great application is when it's the perfect thing for the need that you're trying to solve yourself, like we've talked about a few times. But you think, the image you have in your head of launching an application is sometimes all flowers and books, when really, in reality, it's all inventory management and waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah. My productivity app, to the extent I have one, it is the harness out of Claude pointing at thousands of text files in Obsidian. And like most of the stuff you're doing, I pull off through the chat interface of Claude with Cowork.
Yeah.
And there is no interface on it. And I've kind of intentionally done that because I don't want there to be a maintenance cost to this. I want to keep it as light as possible. And frankly, I want the ability to leave Claude if something better comes along. But one thing I'd be curious for you, Chris, and maybe you can build this into your app. I'd like you to track the amount of time you spend on app maintenance and development.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, I
would
get
be
that
interesting. Yeah.
at the beginning, it's going to take like a lot of time to get this thing built, but you like it. It's delightful. It solves very specific problems for you and your assistant. So it's worth it to do something like that. But over time, like what is the running cost of that? Like if you could do that, maybe report back in a month or two. Like, is this a thing that you spend 5 hours a week maintaining, or is it a thing you spend 5 hours a month maintaining? Those are two different numbers,
Yeah, and I will have that data because of the app. The interesting thing is I've noticed a diminishing. My wife is an economist, so excuse the econ language here. But I've noticed a diminishing marginal utility that I get out of developing the app, where I'm at the point where I've got the core feature set. It does everything that I want it to do. And so I'll get excited and have a new idea for it, but then I'll think, okay, wait, no, that will mean so many rounds of bug fixes. That'll mean, making sure it works on Dana's version of the application and my version of the application. It'll mean coding it for the Mac and the iPhone. And so that's another thing maybe be mindful of. Watch out for when you reach the point of diminishing marginal utility with spending time on the application once you get outside of the core feature set. Because I think you're exactly right. I'm very curious, like with a lot of the experiments that I do, if this will stick for me in the long run. My theory is that it will, because it solves very specific problems for me and Dana and for myself with what I want to track. But time will tell. Might be wrong.
Yeah. And I think that is exactly what you should be doing. And I think it's great that you made this, but it's just like it's something to track in terms of like how much time you put in. And that scope creep problem you were talking about is even more particular for those of us who are not experienced developers, because, neither of us, like I don't know the code of my Vestaboard app. I don't know it. I have not even seen it. It's all been generated out of Claude and a terminal program.
Yeah.
So, bug fixes are very difficult for me. When you add little features, you can break the foundation of the app unknowingly. And suddenly you just wanted to add one little 2% feature, but you just broke 60% of the app. So like there's real problems there as you add features to it. But, I don't want to sound like I'm negative on this stuff, because I'm actually very positive, and I love that this has been democratized and people can make their own apps. But, just be careful. Don't think that this is going to be the solution to fame and fortune, and do understand that it takes real effort.
Have you used, David, because I have not, I'd be curious what your take is if you have, the feature ChatGPT can now read and send iMessages?
Yeah, I am not interested in hooking that up.
No, me either. Me either. It's so obvious when a text is generated by AI. Like email, I get so off put by it. I'd rather a bad email than a great email generated by AI. And I think text is kind of similar in a way for me, where I want that to be part of the human layer of work.
See, for me, it's contextual. Like if somebody has a technical problem with something I've made, like I got one recently about with the Circle community, some implementation details. And it was obviously generated by AI, but it was super detailed and gave me exactly what I needed. And I actually appreciated it. Like the person had the AI, this person had a conversation with the AI, had it put together kind of a list of what they perceived as bugs, and it gave me something I could work from. So there are contexts where it works, but like talking to people I can't imagine ever needing that in a message. And frankly, I still have privacy issues with these frontier models, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And giving it access to my message database is not something really high on my list. But you can do that now. If you're using ChatGPT, you can authorize it. You need the Mac desktop app and Apple Silicon. It works with all plans, and they will gladly read and send emails or messages for you through that, which I'm a little repelled by, even though the last episode was all about how I turned over my email to it. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a matter of taste, how you use this stuff, I think.
Yeah. This next one I thought was interesting. Pew Research, you know who they are. They did a did a poll, and 52% of Americans are more concerned than excited about AI, up from 37% in 2021. Economist YouGov has 70% plus saying AI is moving too fast. CNBC poll of 18 to 34s say that a majority don't trust AI leaders to act responsibly. It's an issue. People don't like AI, and that's increasingly the case. I think as people lose their jobs to it, and as some of the negative consequences of AI continue to emerge, they're going to dislike it even more. Like, I don't like how much my computer costs because of AI, and I think that's something to consider. And what I would like people that listen to this show is to be skeptically optimistic about this technology. I think it's not going to do everything that these people are promising. I think part of the problem is the gap between what these companies promise versus what it's actually useful for. But if you're realistic about it, put the tool to use, make it work for you.
Yeah. And I'm kind of surprised these numbers aren't higher, personally. Yeah. 52% of Americans more concerned than excited. I don't know where I would fall on the concerned or excited part of it. I think it's a lot of both. It's a lot of both, probably like you.
Yeah.
The data center thing isn't mentioned in the article, but that's a whole other can of worms. The environmental impacts of this stuff. Technological revolutions, let's say, aren't without costs, and I would include AI in that mix. But it's so fascinating. It's so interesting how much people dislike AI in general. But yet I was at the coffee shop yesterday doing some work, and pretty much everybody there was on Claude. And first of all, I was surprised they were on Claude and not ChatGPT. Maybe it's the area of Ottawa where I live.
Yeah.
I had the thought everybody was just kind of guiding their AI agents into getting work done. It didn't sit incredibly well with me. I'm going to be honest with you. I felt like, are we all just Claude bots now? Just humanoid Claude bots doing, guiding Claude? So, and that's kind of the purpose, I think, of this show on a lot of levels, is there are ways to use this technology that will empower you, that'll solve problems for you, and won't make you, feel all droned out using it at a coffee shop like everybody else. I think the difference really is intentionality with that.
Yeah, and acknowledging its limits. That's an increasing theme that I want to talk about. Maybe we'll do a show on that at some point, but we don't need to go down that rabbit hole today. But understanding the limits of this actually will empower it for you. Okay, gang. Chris talked about feedback at the top. We're getting a lot of it in. Send feedback in. I think at some point it would be fun to do a feedback episode and answer a lot of the questions. So there's a form at our show at relay.fm/intentional. Just fill it out right there. You can send us a note. If you're clever, you can probably find my email and Chris's email on the internet somewhere. You could also send us a note. But if you send it through that form at Relay, it's more likely to get on our list. So please do that. We are the Intentional AI Podcast. I think we've talked about our mission statement here, but I'll say it one more time. We want you to be more intentional with this technology and use it to your benefit, not somebody else's. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.